So good morning everyone. For today's virtual discussion, we're going to discuss the chapter 3, which is the mobility, borders, and security. So by the way, we are the group 1 and we are going to discuss this chapter. And please, next slide. So for learning objectives, after reading this chapter, you will be able to critically reflect on what is known as the new mobility paradigm. Identify the ethical issues surrounding mobility, border securities, and institutions that they protect. Number three, critically reflect on freedom of access and the right to travel. And lastly, to understand the relevance of justice to mobility. Next slide, please. So 3.1 Introduction. The movement of people from one place to another, also known as the mobility, is enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but is not necessarily a right shared by all. Mobility as Blondie 1994 and others have observed is intrinsically geographic and political. Mobility rights are not only about the right to move, but also the right to stay. So it means kanang moving to one place to another is mobility. So as declaration daw, dili daw ni siya necessary nga kabubutan sa katao nga mo-move siya or dili ka. So, what is the reason nga nung kailangan i-move ang tao, i-move ang location sa katao or ng balay. So, one of these daw is um, geographic or political. So, geographic, example ana is kanang makita nato sa Maynila dito nga kanang urban kay siya ay kanang dikit-dikit kayong balay which is gubot kayo siya. So, knowing na Manila is kanang capital siya, kanang city, which is gubot kayo siya. So, gusto sa mga political na or mga leaders dito nga i-relocate ang ibang tao or mga panimalay nila para na makita na to ang kahino sa lugar. So, pero kanang naiuban ng mga tao nga bilis lang sugod nga i-relocate sila. Why? Tungod kay ang ilang way of living is naa dito dito ilang pangkabuhayan. So gusto kayo silang part na i-relocate sila sa lugar na mag-start na sila sa beginning. Also, matakal ko dahil ang is political. So, anong political? Kay, naiuban nga, ano, in terms ng magdagan na sa bitaw, ano, mag, mga sila og balaod nga, eh, ano, i-relocate sila tungod kay, manani on ano, so, gusto nila nga ma-relocate din sa gikan sa oran. Napo diri sa lugar is most daw sa relocate is kanang uban daw is intended siya nga kanang istudihan na ang relocation pero dili ang tanan nga sakop ani na ay uban nga kanang urgent siya or kanang ura-ura daw kayo pag-relocate sila habang wala na sila ay kanang kaita. So tawag kanon abiso. So second is mobility has become a fashionable term in social science circles over the last 30 years. In part, in part, this is an outcome of developed nation-state moving into late capitalism and recognition that there has been an intensification of interconnectedness globally. So, kung siya, as mentioned kanina nga, i-move nila ang mga panimalay sa ibang tao, labi na sa mga city o mga syudad, tungod kay para, of course, ang ilang panimalay, i-develop siya into industrial, mga business bitaw, so at least, kana, makita sa, actually, pag mag-grow na itong syudad, syempre, atong capitalism or mga investors, like, um, engage ako ito ma-engage ang mga investor ba nga mag-invest sa nga lugar. So, at least, ma-sustain natin ang economy. Pero, unfair kay siya sa part sa uban nga or sa mga uban nga kanang nag-stay sa lugar nga kanang government doing their job nga mapaayos ang ekonomiya pero gineglect nila ang rights sa ibang tao nga sao na lang ang panginagig sa uban maapektuhan kay katulad apekto kay move sila sa phase nga kanang mag-start na pud sila sa beginning kung asa sila nag-start. So, discuss lang ta. So, next slide please. The rising interest in mobility has also been triggered by the recognition that what is happening between space and the places and while in transit are areas of social life that have been historically ignored, both theoretically and empirically. While migration studies have a long history, historically, temporarily mobility and the temporary mobile, including tourists, did not attract a great deal of research attention. In contrast, before I settle with a subject to a great deal of research attention. So as mentioned kanina sa first pa lang na ang ubang gipang move na mga tao or panimalay is intended lang siya sa kanang gitagaan na siya og ano ba research nga kini siya nga area is provided ni siya sa mga nga tao or kini siya is good ni siya nga area para mag-start sila sa bag-o. So naay uban nga kanang gineglect lang wala lang remove lang sila nga remove pero walay kanang possibility walay assurance na ang ilang bako nga panimalay is makasustain sa ilang daily nga panginabuhi. So, next report here.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ma'am. My name is Rosenda Batistel, and I am the second reporter. Excuse me. Tourism is a commodity available to a very small percentage of the world's population. The movement of people, mobility is produced, and its production is shaped by gender, ethnicity, class, the level of development of one's home and or destination country, in relation with other nations. The right to roam, the right to travel are very much about inequitable spatial rights globally. Mobility is prohibited, enabled, allowed, and or encouraged and legitimized through both national and international legislative frameworks which inscribe and prescribe the limits of movement. The establishment of borders and issues connected to the international and national security provide the clearest markers of what might be called the politics of mobility. And at the heart of this politic are ethical and moral concern. Next slide, please. Mobility studies tend to assume the mobility of the tourist is a given and typical social inequality is usually taken to reside in the destination country. The focus is on where the tourists are going rather than what the tourists and their host society might be bringing with them, both previously or be unwittingly contributing to through their nation's relations with others. Geopolitical networks are shaped by the flow of people, capital, goods, and consumptive practices and disparate levels of control over all of these processes and associated outcomes. Understanding the micro process of control over mobility and the macro political context with this they take place allow for a consideration of the ethics and moral issues pertinent to the study of mobility. Next reporter, please.
So good morning everyone. I am the reporter of involuntary immobility. Involuntary mobility is a term increasingly used to refer to those who want to be mobile but for various reasons cannot be. A major reason for immobility is labor migration and globally there have been periods when labor migratory flows have been prevalent, particularly between 1950s and 1970s, and then restricted particularly in the 1980s and 1990s by various countries of immigration. When entry is restricted, this not only has implications for those who want to migrate to work but also for their own countries which have usually relied on remittances to aid development at home. So involuntary mobility major determinants is poverty, illiteracy, poor education levels, and lack of social connection. In addition to entry being denied from these grounds, other obstacles include lack of family ties with new society, prohibitive cost, dangers of traveling as an undocumented migrant, and the risk of repatriation. So involuntary mobility, reason is labor migration. So sa una daw, kay dili pa kayo strict ang immigration sa ubang country. So sa atwa karon ang nagapugong sa mga tao para mag-work kay isa na ang poverty, illiteracy, and poor education. So traveling culture might be better described as a relationship of power which inherently political because it is predicated upon hierarchy of cultures which articulate unequal positions of authority and mobility. So that's all. Thank you. Next reporter, please.
So, in addition, involuntary mobility in layman's term is having the aspiration but not the ability to migrate. So, usually this is what we appropriate in the OFWs, no? Kay in the immigration, pangutan man na sila kung do you have properties there as a Philippines? Pag dili gani or wala gani, mo na siya ang category nga poverty. So pag wala gani kay property sa ano, rejected imuhang application to migrate in another country. So having the aspiration but not the ability to migrate. Next slide, please. The inability to be mobile has meant for many they have lost a strategy that previous generations had relied on to create a better life. By that is by Carling 2002. Yet, while some have become involuntarily immobile, others have enjoyed increased mobility and continue to sustain links transnationally. So, pasabot anang mobile is it is the movement of the people to move in another country, or they have also the choice to stay and also the choice to go back. So pag migration gani means mag-migrate ka sa lain na country but you choose to stay pero di na ka mo balik. But being mobile is you have the choices to stay and to go back to your country. So it is known as the transnational migration. These flows of people typically provoke social connections and networks that link their old and new societies and allow migrants to take advantage of geographical differences by Bash et al. In 1994. So, poverty, illiteracy, and poor education levels are major determinants of involuntary mobility. In addition to entry being denied on these grounds, other obstacles include a lack of social connections and family ties with the new society. So, others also reasons of being rejected to being a mobile is social connection in the country, in the new society na imuhang pasabot na imuhang balhinan. So if you don't have any relatives na ma maadtuan nimo sa imong gusto na balhinan, so ma-reject jud na ang imuhang application. That's why ang uban ng mga tao na gusto mag-migrate is gusto magpakasal para naa sila'y kibale family na sa ilahang new society. Next is the prohibitive cost. Kay usually mahal man gid na sa uban countries no. So dangers of traveling as an undocumented migrant and the risk of repatriation. And that is by Carlin 2002. So it, that's kanang ana mo na siya ang mga OFWs. But then mo na ginatawag ng mga the mobile. So usually ang reason pod na gusto nila maging mobile or mag-migrate is to work, that is labor, 'di ba? Kan mga OFWs nato dara kay gusto magtrabaho but then ilahang contract lang is like 2 years, so that's what we call mobile. Thank you. Next reporter.
So the I am Sophia and I am going to report the migration and tourism symbiotic relationship. So what are the differences between migrants and tourists? So um, as what Miss Adonna said, migration or the immigrants are the one who work abroad or something like OFW and then they choose to stay for good, and while the tourist is just exploring that certain country and then they will go back to their homeland. So a migrant or immigrant is usually defined as a person who travels to another country and settles for some time in that country by Lahav 2004 in Wonders 2006. Further, migrants move for a variety of reasons, including escaping poverty and a desire to improve their economic status and well-being. So, and escaping dangerous home societies, fleeing natural disasters, or to reunite with family who have migrated among others. So, as what Miss Adona also said, to escape their poverty, to improve their economic status, and also um, es- escaping dangerous home society. So best example here is in Iraq. So wherein there's a lot of war I like bombings there, and then the people there choose to migrate to other country in order for them to be safe, something like that. That's all. Next reporter, please.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmate. I am Clifford Vivar, the second reporter of 3.3 Migration and Tourism, a symbiotic relationship. In addition to the report of Miss August, by the definition of ORI 1990 and Wonders 2006 Spain, page 69, tourists are typically perceived as border crosser who are wealthy, white, male, and who move for pleasure and leisure. Yet while these mobile are conceptualized as separate entities, they have a symbiotic relationship where tourism as an industry generates employment that relies on cheap labor, often migrant labor, for the construction, maintenance, reproduction of service sector that provides for the tourists. The relationship between the emigrant and the tourist is dependent, one yet to condition an arrival at borders and one settled experience by these two types of mobility can be very different at the border. The emigrant is potentially a threat in contrast, the tourist is a welcome consumer. So when we say symbiotic relationship, it's what we call the give and take, or they both benefit. And then when we say migrant, it is a temporary travel. And then for we say immigrant, it has a permanent residence. So next reporter, please. Thanks.
Good day, everyone, and I continue the report 3.4 Citizenship, Borders, and Security. There are limits to mobility, and nowhere is this more evident than at border crossings. International travel necessarily involves crossing borders and demarcation lines that mark out territories, territorial governance, and peoples as different entities with different rules, different practices, and their own geopolitical alliances, which may or not differ from the traveler's own. And borders as politically inscribed boundaries, Villa 2000, Gunningham, and Heyman 2004, 289, are spaces that offer the potential for understanding a range of processes related to trade and political relationships, power and social inequality, as it is manifest and differential access to mobility in how macro geopolitical concerns are ultimately inscribed in, produce and reproduce through interconnected microprocesses governing territorial demarcation. And why is border the security so important? Example here is that protecting our borders from the illegal movement of weapons, drugs, contraband, and people, while promoting lawful entry and exist. And it is essential to homeland security and economic prosperity and national sovereignty. And next reporter, please.
Good morning, everyone. Um, Asan sa border control reflects a central tension faced by modern nation states: the desire to protect and the desire to facilitate mobility, where mobility is necessary for trade and tourism, diplomacy, meeting human rights, and sharing information, yet can potentially threaten domestic security when security is an issues. Mobility can be constrained and halt, and it is here that we see the challenge to the notion that freedom to travel should be inalienable human rights. Fears about security are not new, and tourism and the tourist industry are vulnerable to changes in the global security environment. Events in one part of the world can trigger response elsewhere as countries move to protect their borders. Also, um, border and security is very important because aims to prevent the cross-border movement tourists and stem the flow of foreign tourist fighters. So, very important siya sa all country because to prevent the legal movements from other country. Like for example, Mexico, di ba? Grabe magyug katakaran ng world border sa Mexico tungod sa mga illegal drugs, then mga kuan, mga lain pang katakaran nga illegal. So, that's all. Next reporter, please. Uh, Policing borders at internal points and entry including railway, nations, roads, seaports, and airports. It's about protecting the physical limits of the states. The function of policing is to discern who is desirable or undesirable and who offers the greatest threat or enhancement to the state objectives. Protecting borders is about maintaining enough bureaucratic and physical power to exclude those who are a threat and to prevent those who have been deemed undesirable from entering. So mao tong giingon nga ang border insecurity is very important sa atong country kay mao'y ga harang sa mga illegal movement from other states. Next reporter. Nga pa. So Freeing up of some borders in the 1990s gave rise to suggestion that we were moving toward borderless world, and it was assumed by some to be connected to the demise of the nation state. Yet, despite the increase of the movement of people, greater intensification of international trade and associated flows of capital, there has been a proliferation of new borders. Borders have been hospitalized in relation to economic religionism and geopolitics, and for some this means flows, and for others enclosure. Many countries restrict the travel opportunities of their citizens, either not issuing excess visas, imposing high excess taxes, or having currency exchange control, creating genuine barriers to travel and mobility. Like kaning post border post 9/11 is for example ani North Korea kay dili nila ginapagawas ilang mga citizen, so ang makagawas ra is limited katurang nasa mga high murag kuan ang makagawas kay tungod sa ilang mamot murag tungod mangguro na sa ilang kaning kuan. Next. Next.
Good morning, everyone. Passport and visas are necessary travel documents for all travelers. Yet, global conformity for the need for such documentation has a recent history and coincides with the consolidation of industrial capitalism, the rise of mass tourism, and war. Historically, passport and visa systems sought to ensure safe travel to the holder, often during wartime. So, ang passport and visas are important when you travel abroad tungod kay maunang magpakita sa imong identity o kanang nationality. So what are the difference between passport and visa? So the main difference between a passport and visa is that a passport is issued to a country's citizen for international travel and identification. Passport include photo, name, birthday, gender, and physical characteristic, while visa is an endorsement placed within a passport that grants the holder official permission to enter, live, or stay in a country for a specified time period. Visa and passport is necessary when travel abroad to ensure the safety of everyone. So, passports serve as the primary form of identifying a person's nationality, which in turn aligns the traveler with their nation. Foreign policy identifies the travel as a friend or foe with respect to the former, and constantly allows a state to classify the traveler as a safe, dangerous, high risk or low risk, desirable or undesirable. The importance of passport for mobility is best illustrated to those who do not have them. Undocumented migrants may be economic migrants seeking entry to work or refugees seeking a safe place to be. So, passport is primary form to identify the traveler if it has a good intention or bad intention in traveling. And also, the importance of passport in the mobility is to identify the traveler if it has a complete documents or undocumented. So, undocumented migrants is mga economic migrants na ay namusulod sa ibang bansa para mo work or nangita og kanang mga safe place. So, next reporter.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Jessa Barte. My report is about surveillance, legitimate and illegitimate mobility. So, a legitimate is a process or legal and lawful siya. So, well, illegitimate is illegal, undocumented, and unauthorized. So, as we have seen, not all nations grant passport as the right of citizenship. The modern passport document usually link the photograph of the individual with a unique code. A passport is for a person, includes biometric information, and should allow the identification of bearer through date of birth, signature, security, features, and space for visa and permits. The documentation also ensures that the bearer is a citizen of the state that issued the passport and is able to return there. The passport is often supplemented with a visa, which focuses on the reason for the visit and allows the destination country to examine for the border if the bearer is approved of basic requirements for country. So, for those, there was na nandito mag-visa like Canada. So, need a passport if you there. However, you need to have a valid ID for identification. Next slide, please. Achieve examination at the board to surveillance. The 9/11 Tourist Act has been implicated for all travelers with states strengthening enforcement, measure their borders, and increase level of securitization. Cunningham 2009. In the United States, the Department of Homeland Security was created to address the poor coordination of intelligence concerned with domestic security. So next reporter, please.
Good morning, my name is Demar Bidulis. I'm second reporter. This measuring mark is an increase in examination for someone, but importantly, there has been increased surveillance for all as their measure are not longer located at the border, but within the theory to profiling release conception, which in turn visited statistical profiling national sociality works and unsubstantiated assumption profile on board and lack of precision. Shelter 2004. Since 9/11 with political control, our airport in instigate challenges for conceptualization for airport are as fun and free place and simply facilitate travel during this departure. An arrival place in the post 9/11 era challenges early conceptualization, but our effort are non-space, showing sociality, meaningless, vocal, playlist, or space for flows. 1995, 2004 aided surveillance, practice control, and ensure uneven flows. Next.
Hello everyone, I am Mers Jimneri A. Alipolia. My report is 3.7. The Mobile Body Borders, Biometric and Societies. Since the development of mass air transportation in the late 1960s, a range of techniques has been employed on the part of airports to understand passenger mobility, with contemporary practice becoming increasingly automated and concerned with not only efficient management but also security. Technologies that capture the human body are known as biometrics, capable scanning eyes, hands, and face, the whole body, thus uncovering an individual's identity by ADI 2004. These technologies allow the documentation of the body as it appears and for the comparison of this data with data on secure computer system and thus confirmation of authenticity and the legitimacy of travel. The technology that capture the human body are known as biometric. Bio means life and the metric means measure. Biometric technology is able to recognize a person on basis of the unique features of their face, fingerprint, signature, DNA, and other characteristics with data already stored on the server. For example, biometric technologies at airports are designed to verify passenger identities by cross-checking facial scans with passports photo already on file. Next reporter, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The challenge of conducting effective surveillance at airports where there are growing numbers of travelers have been met through technological innovation and the management of flows. In many airports, the flow of passenger is directed, where passengers are forced to take two journeys, one of which is overt, the sunlit strip, and the other which is covert, an odyssey controlled by the authorities through categories and definitions and foreign languages. This is according to PASCO 2001. And we all know that people nowadays are engaged in social media. And because of it, we discover a lot of different places. And because people want to explore those beautiful places, to know their culture and try their cuisines, that will lead people to travel and, of course, the growing numbers of travelers. And to ensure the effective surveillance at the airports, they have a technological innovation like TSA or the Transportation Security Administration. It uses millimeter wave advanced imaging technology to safely screen passengers for metallic and non-metallic threats, including weapons and explosives, which may be concealed under the clothing. And the management of flows like SITA passenger flow management, it helps airports to enhance the safety and security, optimizing airport operations by providing the analytics for stakeholders to better understand passenger segments and behaviors. It allows for greater control over passenger flows and crowd density. And overt is a surveillance that is performed using devices that are visible and obvious, while covert is carried out without the subject knowledge. And profiling has been advocated and defended in a very similar way to biometric surveillance. The bodies are treated differently. The kinetic elite move through quickly. They are embodied those who are unknowns. The kinetic underclasses are disembodied, move slowly, and eventually sit in a smaller set. This is according to ADI 2004, and that would be all. Next reporter, please.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Dandas Benitez. My topic is all about is also profiling. Profiling is about assessing the risks, and increasingly simulation models are being used to design the processing facilities at airports. So, as we all know, profiling is really necessary in the airports in terms of assessing the risks and also preventing the things that might occur someday, diba? Um, and also, and why is about this is about facilitating flows and preventing queues. It is also about facilitating shopping in the real retail outlets, according to Limos 1997, cited in ADI 2004. So surveillance simulations are clearly also good for airport economics. So ang surveillance sa airports is really good for the airport economics. So it can help the locals or the retailers. According to ADI 2004-1375, Airports are clearly not places for equal flow. Passengers are subject to power and control. Multiple forms of surveillance that are linked to a wider web of technologies in order that travelers be classified as either high or low risk. And in these spaces, it is important to present oneself in a doxal manner. So, sa airport is sa airport na joy subject to power and control na yung mga inana na happenings or na yung mga inana nga personalities. So dapat natong buhaton is we should present ourselves as in a doxal manner. We should follow instructions and directions sa mga employees or mga securities. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that will be the end of the slide, I think. Mr. Jane, last ba yan? Hi. Last na. Okay. Ma'am, I think that will be all the content of our discussion, and now we will proceed to the question and answer. So anyone can ask any question. So if walay mag-question, mag-select na lang ta og representative na mag-ask a question, and or he will be choose na kinsa magtubag. So Mr. Clifford Debar, any question and ikaw mag-select sa representative na mag-answer po.
Good morning, everyone. So, what is the importance of mobility in the tourism industry? Please answer my question, Mr. Alviar. Thank you.
Okay, what is the importance of mobility in tourism or in hospitality or tourism hospitality industry? So as we all know na our industry is or our field is the service industry, and we are we are always tend to we are always na nasa field na service, so which is my dyan is travel either in a cruise ship or in a or by a land or a sea or by air or a sea. So mobility na dara ato ang transportation, which is travel ka for recreation or for some other importance na atong buhaton. So importante kay siya sa ato ang industry. Mobility cover ta ato ta og laing nasod, so gusto ta mag-wander dito ang mag travel. So gamit kayo itong mobility, gamit kayo ang mobility sa inyong nanang aspect. So, since na ako nagtubag, so mag-select ko, mangutan na po kong lain, so ako po mag-select kung sa mag-answer. So, as we all know nga, mobility is the movement of one place to another. So, what is the essence of mobility? Or, what is the essence of mobility in boosting the economy? So, magtubag ana is si Mr. John. What is the essence?
So ang essence sa mobility sa to VR.
What is the essence purpose of mobility in boosting the economy?
It could help boost the economy because sa word na mobility kay dili matabangan sa katao kung sa katao ang isa ka ang isa kuan kung dili siya mobile kay kung dili siya makaadto, so dili siya makatabang sa pag-bus sa kuan sa isa ka lugar. So ang
Pwede ko
essence niya mao gyud na siya ang mao gyud na siya ang kanang kailangan para makatabang siya sa kuan. That's all, thank you.
pwede ko mag-add.
Sige. Wait lang.
In addition,
Mr. Jana, pwede ka mag-ask a question, then pwede ko ka magsulit kung di sa imo ang katubagan.
pwede ko mag-add sa imong question ba tong kuan.
Okay. Sige, go.
In addition sa mobility, it boosts economic because mobility give like play kuan like contribution of like magpagasolina ng mga magpaayo like nana sa mobility. Makakuan siya sa atong economic. Moro to.
Pwede yung mag-add.
Pwede kayo.
Go, Hers!
Sa kuha, mobility is a very important of this now generation because this is one of a particular gamit siya pang transportation, sa trading, other businesses of our society now.
Great question, Phil.
So wala na pangutana.
So wala na yun ang pangutana.
Wala na po.
So I think that is the end of our discussion, and thank you for the cooperation, group 1. Step 1.